Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shadow Work by April. My name is April Walsh, Shadow Work Coach and Quantum Healer. Lily's with us today. So I have several subjects that keep coming up in my reality since the beginning of the Lionsgate portal. And those subjects are judgment and also meditation. And I already meditate a lot. Come on, Lily. I meditate a lot. It was one of the first things I started doing during my journey, but meditation can be boring sometimes, and there's so many different types of meditations that you can do that I very quickly strayed away from, just the silent, training my mind meditation, and then I moved on to things like focusing on my breath, and then I started listening to meditations and hypnosises on YouTube and stuff. And then other things, there's all different kinds of meditations you could do. I started doing astral projection and this and that. Well, during the Lionsgate portal, I was brought back to the beginning, brought back to the original method that I started with, which was just being present, silent meditation. And I've learned a lot about why that technique is so important. It's like, if you really like doing the other types of meditations, like listening to the YouTube videos or doing breath work or whatever, it's fine to do that, but your primary type of meditation needs to be silencing your mind. And let me tell you why. So here's the deal. Our minds, our brains become addicted to emotional responses. And the best way that, for me to get you to understand this, let me give you some examples, like gossiping. If you really get down to the nitty gritty and you really center yourself and focus on your emotions and try to figure out what exactly the emotion is that you attached with gossiping, like what it feels like to gossip with your best friend, it's not really a positive one. It's a mild irritation of the spirit. There's a little bit of nastiness to it, a lot of resentment, and that's an example of emotional addiction. It's not necessarily a positive one. There's not really anything positive about gossiping about your friends and family. It doesn't even feel good. It feels addicting, but it does not feel good. And so this is how our brains are wired. We are creatures of habit. So if we grew up in a really stressful environment, even though we want more peace and joy in our adult lives, every time, your brain is going to take you towards what's familiar, even if it sucks. So in this way, you are reliving your traumas over and over and over again, but it's in a more controlled environment, so you think that it feels good. But if you really actually think about it, talking shit about your friends doesn't feel good. Talking about people's hardships emotionally, it doesn't feel good. It feels like an addiction. So here we go. When we all know somebody, or we are that person who's addicted to talking about their past, and you want to talk about it all the time and talk about it all the time. That is an emotional addiction to the past. And then we all know those people. I'm still guilty of this sometimes, but it was out of control before I started this work. But addicted to worrying about the future. And it's an addiction because you do it constantly It doesn't feel good to worry about the future, but it feels good to know that you're preparing yourself, right? So we reminisce about the bad things that happened in the past. We worry about the future. And both of those things are the opposite of being in the present moment, just focusing on the now. So when we are thinking about the past, thinking about the future, we are pulling energy away from our present moment, pulling energy away from our actual energy bodies. And you need your energy so you can heal and be happy and manifest what you want and move those emotional trauma blocks from childhood. I mean, that's why they're blocks. We call them blocks because you keep going back to them. You keep going back to them. Even if you're not somebody who reminisces about the past all the time, because there's plenty of people who don't like to talk about the past. You'll find that you may not talk about it, but the emotional addiction is still there because you have your trauma moment and you keep reliving it with different people over and over and over again. And in that way, you're living in the past. Your brain is taking you down what's familiar, and it's an addiction to the emotional chemicals that cause you to feel that way. So I posted something the other day about how if you can spend 30 minutes to 2 hours every day being in the present moment, not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, and not riding this wave of emotional addiction, every second you can bring yourself to that place, your energy is pulled back to you, pulled back to you, pulled back to you. Even if you can only manage it for 1 or 2 seconds or 15 seconds or a minute, like it benefits you in a huge way to have all of your energy right here in front of you in the present moment. Most of us go our entire lives living in the past and in the future. And it really takes time to train your brain to do these things, to actually be in the present moment and not worry about what somebody did to you or what somebody's going to do to you or what happened back then, what might happen tomorrow. Very important to live in the present moment. And once you get used to doing those meditations and you can actually train your brain to stop reaching out for emotional fixes, because that's really what it is. Your brain wants familiar, so your thoughts take you in places that bring you familiar emotions. Once you get to a point where you can do that with your eyes closed, sitting or laying in your bed meditating, you can start doing it in your day-to-day life, and it brings you into alignment. In the spiritual new age community, people talk about being in alignment, in alignment, being in flow, being on your path. If you're looking backwards or looking forwards, you can't move in the direction of your path. So it looks something like this. If you're not, say you're sitting on the couch and all of a sudden you get the urge to paint a picture. But then you start thinking of what you have to do later. Oh, I don't have time for that. I got it. Or you start thinking about the past. Well, the last time I painted a picture, it made a big mess, or I wasn't that good at it. You just lost your alignment. Alignment would mean don't think, just do. If you want to paint a picture, stand up, get your stuff, go paint a picture. If you want to go on a walk or you want to go exercise, don't think about the past. Don't think about the future. Don't bring these emotional addictions into the situation. Just get up and go do it. And then from that point, you can start moving in alignment with what feels good. We do all this work trying to fix ourselves and have better lives. But in the end, all we're trying to do is experience more joy and more excitement and more happiness every day. And when you bring yourself into the present moment and you can start actually walking and living throughout the day in the present moment, you can follow your happiness and follow your joy. And it will lead you right where you're supposed to be. Boom. Meditate. Okay. Judgment. A while back, I think it's been a couple weeks now, I had a friend who works with the Akashic Records. I'm migraine prone. And so I asked her to look into it in the Akashic. And she did that for me. And she brought something, and we have this conversation sometimes about like shackles. I have a group of friends who are healers, and often we see the same energetic wound on people's feet that we can't do anything about. None of my methods work to move it. The stuff that I normally do to cut cords and move blocks and do this and do that, none of it works. It's just totally solid. I can't move it. It's just there. And a lot of my healer friends, they see the same thing, like this thing on people's ankles or going through the top of their foot that they just can't move. It's just there. We see it on everybody. So this friend that I asked to enter the Akashic, I've talked to her about the shackles that I see, talked to her about it several times. So while she was in asking about my migraines, she made a discovery about the shackles. And so after this session with her, I started calling in my guides and my higher self and my team to help me figure out exactly what these shackles are about. And I figured it out within a couple days, and the answer was judgment. We are bound to our misery by judgment. If you think about, if you're capable of really looking honestly at yourself, and I know some people are, a lot of people really aren't, they're just not there yet. But if you can look honestly at yourself throughout your day, how often are you judging this person, judging that situation, comparing it, doing the yardstick thing, I'm better than this person, I'm not better than this person. This person's not as good as me. Their choices are wrong because it's not the choice I would make. Whatever. If you can honestly look at yourself and see how often you're making judgments against yourself and against other people, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Judgment is based out of fear completely. I'm afraid to be judged, and I really want acceptance. And I'm going to make all my decisions based on avoiding judgment from other people. You can't be in alignment if that's how you're going through your life. So it's really important to recognize when you are placing judgment on anyone, anything, any situation, and really think about it. We judge people because of our own insecurities. Let me tell you something about back in the day before I started doing this work. I was very judgy towards mothers who didn't parent like I did. Well, that's not true. Not all of them. I felt, I compared myself to lots of like moms on Instagram and I felt inferior. But with other people, I was just so judgmental and so angry about the decisions that they made with their kids if I didn't feel like they were up to par with my own standards. And it was really ridiculous. I lost friendships over difference in parenting skills. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, I was such a B word. But it's where I was, I was living in fear and I was a very judgy person, especially when it came to children and parenting. And the reason that I was so judgmental against parents is because I felt inferior as a parent. So if you look at who you are judging most often, what it revolves around, what type of person it is, what type of situation it is, if you flip it around and apply it to yourself, you can learn about your deepest, darkest fears. I judged parents so harshly because I was so terrified of being judged as a parent. So, I'm not saying stop judging people. Like, if you can work on it, work on it. I'm working on it right now. It's very hard. It's so ingrained in our subconscious and in the programming that we receive all through our lives that it's almost impossible to remove judgment. But hey, I'm trying. If I discover the secret sauce, I'll let all y'all know. But like, at the very least, Use it to discover your fears. This is what shadow work is about. It's about discovering shadow aspects of ourselves that we have buried because of fear of judgment. And you can come into alignment and find out who you really are if you can identify these fears and face them and work with them and figure out where exactly they came from and do the clearing work and just do what you got to do, to clear this stuff out. It will move you into alignment. And that's all we're really looking for. All of us want to feel like we are where we're supposed to be. We want to feel joy. We want to feel excitement. We want to feel successful. We want to feel like we're contributing to society. We want to feel like we are making a difference and reaping rewards at the same time. That is what alignment is. So, do your meditations. Pay attention to your judgy behavior. Learn about your deepest fears so you can face them and work through them and become physically, emotionally, and spiritually more healthy. Thank you. Have a good day.